Hey everyone, how are you doing tonight? Welcome to Bite-Sized Tips for Busy Entrepreneurs and Job Seekers. And because it's December, it seems to be a very busy time of year for me and my special guest, Laura. We are career coaches, and it seems like everyone puts finding a new job on their New Year's resolution list. And so I dedicated December for the month of sharing tips on how you can find the right job and get hired. So my guests this month have all been career coaches and experts. We like to collaborate and work together. So Laura and I, we both help use LinkedIn to help our clients position themselves not just as the candidate, but the right candidate so they can land a job. Hey, you guys, before we get started, I'm super excited that you're here, but I would love to ask that you go ahead and hit that little share button right down there so we can share this out, because Laura and I are on a mission to get as many people hired in the right jobs where they can thrive and be successful in 2020. So really hit that little share button right there and let's blast this out to all the networks. Now, you guys, before I introduce our guest, I want to let you know that I am using some amazing technology, StreamYard, tonight, and I'm broadcasting on 4 different platforms, but I cannot see the comments here on LinkedIn or Facebook when I'm broadcasting. So I have a laptop over here, and if you see me do this, I'm simply trying to see if you have any questions or comments. I'm not ignoring you. And I hope that you like the festive little Santa hat. Since it's almost Christmas, and Christmas is like one of my favorite holidays besides my birthday, I thought that I would throw on this hat. And you'll see that I had some competition with Laura in just a moment when I bring her on. You guys, please let me know where you're watching from, because I love knowing where my audience is from. We've created this global network, and I love to serve you guys. So let me know where you're watching from and what industry you're in, or what type of job you're looking for, like what industry or organizations. And you guys, for my replayers, #replay, go ahead and drop your questions and comments in, because Laura and I promise to go back in and engage and answer those questions. Well, without further ado, let me bring tonight's special guest, Laura Bayshore, onto the shore. Laura, you're on.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know it's a hectic time of the year, so thank you for taking time out. And you guys, look at her wonderful tree. I was like, wait a minute, I'm feeling like awkward that I don't have an amazing like tree behind me. I'm in my office. So I ran real quick and got my little Santa hat. So you guys, in this episode, Laura's going to be sharing, you guys know the drill, 3 fabulous tips. We're going to be talking about ATS Compatibility. That's the applicant tracking system. That's how to get your resume from the big pile down to the little pile. You want your resume in the short pile. We're also going to be talking about how to quantify and not sound generic. I'm sure we're going to talk about resume length too, right, Laura? We'll probably touch on that a little bit. It's a big question. And then finally, we're going to talk about transferable skills. We all have them, but how do we find them? How do we define them? We're going to talk about that as well. So you guys, Laura, thank you so much again. Everyone, welcome to Bite-Sized Tips for Busy Entrepreneurs and Job Seekers. Let's dive in. And before we do, you guys know, I always like to let you know how I found my guests. I don't randomly like pick them up off LinkedIn or Facebook. Laura and I actually met on LinkedIn, and we've been communicating. We have been sharing each other's posts. And to let you guys know, we've been collaborating on some side projects, and we've decided to kind of partner up so that we can serve our community a little better. Right, Laura?
Yeah, absolutely.
I love working with Laura. She's so full of knowledge. And some of you might be thinking, well, you're both career coaches and you both train on LinkedIn. Isn't that what you're not supposed to do? You're not supposed to collaborate and work with people that are like your competitors. I'm like, no, banish that out of your head, you guys. I say work closely with those people, create and align collaborations and work together and learn from each other. That's my philosophy.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I have the same philosophy towards it. So I'm happy to collaborate with you.
Yeah, I think there's more power in working together, and there's enough business for all of us. We're not going to starve to death, and we're not going to not have enough clients. We refer people back and forth all the time because it's not the right fit for one of us. So
Yeah.
it's amazing, you guys, and you all need to collaborate with people in your industry. That's just my opinion. It's not endorsed by anyone else.
Except me, I'll endorse it. So
Why, thank you. I appreciate that.
you're welcome.
So, Laura, before we dive right in, why don't you go ahead and share with the audience a little bit about your background and why I think you're an expert to bring on the show?
Okay. I have been in the industry for about 10 years. And before I went into business for myself, which is almost 4 years ago, I also ran a career center here locally in San Diego. And at that career center, as their manager, it was my responsibility to partner up with San Diego County, other big hitters, companies around here, so Qualcomm, every industry pretty much, and work with them about what they were looking for in candidates. At our career center, we helped people with getting their resumes in line, how to interview, and all of those great tips. So, specifically for resumes, I got into this on my own when I worked with a former colleague of mine by the name of Harry, who was one of our top salespeople, top three in the whole company out of about 2,500 reps. And he'd been looking for work for a year. I looked at his resume and said, okay, I think I understand why. So worked on it together. And after that, he had his interview and was in his next spot making a commiserate salary within 30 days of getting it updated. So it really does matter what you have on your resume, because that's basically your extended business card, and that's what gets your foot in the door.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And you guys, the reason I have her on the show is why I'm a career coach. I can help you with like putting the package together, and I can help you network and your LinkedIn profile and interview. You know what I don't do well? Resumes. Because it is a special creature and it's a special talent. And I'm so thankful that I got introduced to Laura and that we have partnered up on this, because writing resumes is not mine. And if you guys think you can write your own resume, you can. It'll probably suck, but you can write it. And you might take an example off the internet, right? Go like, I'll just copy this. I'll plug and play. Because I've done that in the past. It still is going to suck. It's not going to be as strong as it can be or should be. And that's why you need, let me see if I do this right. I always do it backwards. And that's why you need her.
You got it.
I'm like, I always do it backwards.
Pointing the other way.
Yeah. That's why you need Laura, you guys. You need a professional to write your resume. I'm going to share a really quick story about a resume blunder, we'll call it. We'll keep this PG. So my sister, who worked for Starbucks for like 18 years, was shifting, and she asked me about her resume, and I'm like, oh, you need to hire someone. She went to Etsy, paid someone $85, got a resume, and she's like, I could have done this. I'm like, yeah, for $85, what do you expect? It's plug and play. And she had to retype it, like redo it all. And I was like, I tried to, at that time I was working with another resume company, and I was like, well, you could go to them. She's like, no, I already paid my $85. That's what I'm going to stick with. I'm like, okay. But she spent $85 and really got a crap resume. And she had to redo it, when if you put the money out in the forefront and get a decent resume that brands you as the expert that you are for the industry that you want to go in, right? Then you're going to be more successful in that job search, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I have heard of, Top Resume and things like that. Never heard of Etsy doing it. That is
right?
an interesting one.
I would never refer anyone to Etsy, but
for that, yeah.
not for that. I got my husband's wedding band off of there.
Oh yeah, we had our save the date. off there for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. A resume. So
Nothing.
there's a pro tip right there. Don't go to don't go to Etsy to get your resume done. Really hire a professional, because it is the first or second thing a recruiter or talent manager is going to see. They'll probably see, they could see your LinkedIn profile first, and then you send in your resume, or you send in your resume and then they go to your LinkedIn profile to see if everything lines up and what else they can learn about you from your LinkedIn profile. So I don't know about you, but do you find like everyone's like, oh my gosh, I want to work with you. I want a new job in 2020. I feel like, right?
A lot right now. Yeah. I mean, that's, everybody's goal. It's a good thing to try to get started now because, as you mentioned, everybody's getting really booked up for that same reason. So you want to get on the schedule so that your 2020 job search doesn't happen at the end of January or the
Yeah.
end of
And
February.
it takes a little time to prepare for a job search.
Yeah.
Mentally getting all your documents together, whether it's your LinkedIn profile and your resume and your car statements, just all of that stuff that you have to work on to be ready to apply. It doesn't happen overnight. 30 days is not the typical from start to finish. Some of the studies that I've read for Manpower and on Forbes is the average job search actually takes 3 to 5 months. So want my job seekers to know that right now. It's 3 to 5 months, because it's not like you turn a resume in, you get an interview, and they call you right away and you get an interview and they make a decision. We know that it drags out. They're hiring, they're interviewing multiple people. And then there's always that decision maker, and then they go back and you might have a second interview or a third interview. I've gone on job interviews where I had 3 interviews. It was crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty standard now too, especially because unemployment is so low. People can just take their time with it. So I have talked to a lot of clients who are frustrated because they've gone on their second, third, fourth interview, so it's important to have everything in line so that once you're ready to start applying, you're able to just continue doing that, even though you're interviewing with other companies.
Absolutely. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, exactly. Because then you got to start it up again.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, hey, let's dive right into topic 1, the dreaded ATS, which is the applicant tracking system. And you probably know a little more about this than me. So I'm going to let you explain what that is and what you need to do to get around that.
Yeah. So probably the first question I hear from my clients is, I need to get through the ATS. Can you help me with the ATS? And people don't know what that is. So it's just a fancy way of saying that your resume is going to go into a computer system to be scanned. Like you mentioned earlier, Mary, it's the applicant tracking system. So that is automatically linked up into the HR software that most companies are using. And so a couple of things with ATS is that you need to have your keyword hit. You need to have a certain percentage of those keywords hit. Usually you need to be matching 80% or above. And in order to do that, it has to be the exact keyword. So, for example, if somebody says um, client relationship management system, but they're having a client retention management system, better to have CRM in there in parentheses next to it so that you're getting the hit for CRM versus trying to figure out if they're using retention or uh, any other kind of word or synonym that matches with that. So that's the first step on ATS. The second thing is a lot of people who have had their resumes done, you get it in a Word format mostly and a PDF format. And people like to send out the PDF format because they want it to look pretty, right? They want it to stay how it is. The problem with that is that most ATS systems cannot read PDF. Yes, of course, there are some that can, but for those companies who are not going to spend the extra money to have that capability, and most companies don't, why not be safe and make sure that you have a Word ATS format that's going to maintain its formatting, whether it's in Word or PDF, and then you just print out the PDF for yourself. Because with the amount of applications that people are receiving, recruiters and hiring managers do not have time to say, oh, can I contact this client back when there's 3 other candidates who could also fill the need, but have taken the time to send in a Word document instead. So I always make sure to let my clients know that. And then basically, you don't want to put graphs or charts is the other number one thing. People put their special information in this beautiful graph and chart. However, the ATS system can't read that most of the time. Again, there are always exceptions to the rule.
Right.
Yes, you will find some that have them. But just because you're in a tech industry, I mean, unless you're going to Google or Apple, really don't count on it. You should be using Word. So.
Right. And I think that is a misconception out there, because I feel people have told me, oh, I need to send the PDF because a Word document, they could edit it or change it, and you don't want any of the formatting to go. And I understand that.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is so critical. Like, if the ATS system, most of them, 90% of them cannot read a PDF, they just can't, the coding, it can't read it, don't send it in. Take that chance, use the Word, and show up to the interview with, a copy of your resume.
Exactly.
And you can email, like, if it moves on past that, you can always email or send it on LinkedIn to the person that you're communicating with. You can send that PDF version.
Yeah, absolutely. The formatting, you can still have a nice clean cut formatting that's Word that's going to maintain that. And honestly, that's better than having something that is too antsy anyways. I know when I was hiring people in my previous positions, it sends a wrong message unless you're a graphic designer. Just, kind of relax on everything that you put into it, because the content is actually what's important. So that's just one thing I would get across.
Thank you. Yeah, ATSs, they're awful. You just have to know how to get around them. We got to knock down that wall. So it all starts with using the right format, using Word, not PDF, having the keywords. I've heard this time and time again. You have to match 80% of the keywords just to get picked up from the big pile to the little pile. So, and this is something that I know my clients always are like, oh, are you kidding me? And even my husband, like, you have to customize each resume that you send in, because you've got to make sure that you've got the keywords for that job description or that job posting, right?
Well, honestly, I don't think so. I feel that your resume, if you have someone who's helped you work on it properly, is going to represent who you are as a professional. And those keywords should be in there. The caveat to that are software engineers or scientists. And what I do for those clients is I leave one bullet open for them to add in maybe 1 to 2 keywords that are specific.
I like that idea better. So if there's a job description and they know there's 1 or 2 keywords, they just add that in.
Yeah, that way it's not overwhelming, and I really feel like, so, okay, real quick, an example I had a scientist who I worked with, David, and he had an ATS system that he was feeding his resumes into before he sent them. He's been doing this, and so he's seeing what the job description's saying. He's throwing in those words, right? His matchup was only getting to 75%. He sent it over to me, and I redid his resume for him. For a job posting I had never seen, he took that resume I made and put it in, and he called me so excited because his ATS match was 95%.
What? And he
was
was using a system before working with you that should have helped him.
Exactly. So that's why when people are so into ATS, you really also have to know how to line everything up, because it's not just about dropping in those words.
I love this.
Real place to put it.
Again, this is why I don't do resumes. Like, I know enough to get myself in trouble, and I also know
Right.
that I need to refer people to her, right? That's why that's why we collaborate together.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I like that. So, yeah, I have a couple more clients for you.
And it made me excited too, because I'm like, oh, that is, yeah. I'm like, that is turning out the way I'm telling people it is.
Yeah, you're like, yeah, what I'm saying is working. That's always a
Yeah,
good thing too. Hey,
right?
you guys, if you have any questions regarding resumes, ATS, transferable skills, anything career coach wise, go ahead and drop them. And I'm looking over here because I'm looking at LinkedIn on my other laptop. You guys should see the setup. It's crazy. 2 laptops, a camera, and my phone over here. Go ahead and drop those in. Dan has joined us. Let me tell you, Dan, uh, Shitra, Yvonne. So we have a few people watching us. If you guys have any questions, we would love to answer your questions live. So just drop them in and I'll keep monitoring the questions so that we can answer your questions live, or a comment. Maybe you have a suggestion. Maybe you've seen something happen in your own job search or a friend's job search. Please share that. And I just want to let you guys know that if you're thinking it, if it's a question, someone else is thinking it too. So let's help everybody by answering as many questions as we can tonight. So that's a lot about ATS. That opened up my eyes, and this is why I don't do resumes. What we learned from the resumes and the ATS is, number one, you have to match 80% of the keywords that are in the job description, right?
Right.
Okay. And number two, those ATS systems that you can use don't always work. Just hire Laura.
Right.
Number three, you don't always have to rewrite your resume if you work with a professional that formats your resume and gets the keywords in there. Someone like Laura. Yay! So, you know what? Let's move on to our second topic, which I really want to dive into this. Quantify, don't be generic. Can you tell us what you mean by that, Laura?
Yes. So a lot of times when I talk to clients that are well qualified, we have our consultation and I can tell that they are somebody who they should be getting those interviews. Um, they will send me over their resume and it will go two ways. One, it looks like they just pulled the latest job description and threw that in there, like per sentence. Or two, um, they will have a paragraph for each thing that they feel is something that they do, but it's not tying into their accomplishments of it. It's more so talking about what they did. And especially, I find that for people who are in the IT industry is really difficult, or science industry, it's really difficult for them to understand how to make that succinct and also how to pull out the qualifications because they want to show that they can do the work. But when you're going into management type positions, you need to be able to say that succinctly and to show how that works. So when we're talking about don't be generic, well, if your resume just reads like a job description, then you're saying you can do those, but so are the other applicants who've submitted their resumes. You are not showing the results of what you do when you're able to do that, if that makes sense. So a great example that I show to people, because some people will say, well, I don't make money for the company, right? Which is a falsehood because everything we do revolves around generating revenue in some way or another. So you need to think outside the box and think about how you accomplish that. So here's a great example that I can show you or speak about is I had a client who was she was a business services rep. So she's going out and establishing partnerships. And one of the major accomplishments she had, but she didn't know how to say it, was that she took on their partnerships from 10 to 30. So she went ahead and increased that in 1 year. Now, that was a small region that she worked in, and she didn't feel comfortable highlighting that because she was trying to get into major corporations. Basically, she did all the groundwork where she felt like, okay, I have this great level, and now I need to get more into the corporate field. How do I make that make sense? right? If I'm going to a big organization, saying, oh, look, I got 20 more partnerships might not be the highlight. So instead, I told her, okay, well, let's show that as a percentage of your increase. How much did you increase that? So if you do the quick math, which I already did prior to this, right? So math in my head doesn't work well. So instead, you're going to change that to within first year of higher increased business relationships by 33%. Okay, so who wouldn't want that? Because again, you're showing what you're able to accomplish. If you have more resources, you're going to be able to do that on the corporate level. You have to kind of think about it in that way. What are you positioning yourself for? So it really helps to talk to somebody and to look at that. Another thing is working in with nonprofits. There are other things that you can talk about, not just the bottom line. And then if you are working on process improvements, well, how much did you increase workflow efficiency? What's that percentage there? How much did you reduce costs by cutting out, the manpower needed to do something? So there are many different ways that you can quantify something that sounds much better than built strong relationships with our partners and vendors.
I totally agree. It's all about the numbers. So it's
Mhm.
just having a careful eye, like someone like you or myself that knows that you're not just a customer service specialist. It's how many customers did you help and
Exactly.
how much, did you reduce what, sometimes I'm like, well, if you're in accounting, did you find accounting errors? Did you save the company 10?
Exactly.
You didn't just process invoices, right? In accounting, you
Yeah.
processed them on time. You uncovered mistakes. You saved the company $20,000. You got payments in that had been outstanding. There's
Right. If
always
you
a
pass your
numbers.
audit, all
Yes,
of
you
that.
passed your
Yeah.
audit. That's huge in
Yeah,
accounting. But so many
exactly.
times the job seekers, they're just what's it called when you can't see the trees through the forest,
Yes.
right? They can't. Did I say that the right way?
Yes.
Yeah. You can't see the trees through the forest because all you're like is like, I need to get a job and this is what I do. So I love that you're talking about quantifying and using numbers. Recruiters and talent managers, they love numbers, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I know for some people who have not had to look for work, those were things that so if you've been in a position for 15 or 20 years, that's really great. Um, but you also kind of have that stance of, well, we don't talk about that. But now we
Right.
do. Now we do. And it's okay, and it's the way I think
Okay to do this. I'm good. I saved the
yeah,
company money. You have to sell yourself, right? I think that
you
as
have
job
to.
seekers, we both know we've been working. We work with joint clients. We have crossovers, and it's like they don't want to sell themselves. They're like, well, I don't want to boost. I don't want to boast. I don't want
Yeah.
to, say I'm great at this. I'm like, yes, you do. You have to sell yourself, but how do you do that so it doesn't come off salesy with
Yeah.
the numbers that you're talking about?
And in the interviews where you can let your humble side show and your great personality. Right now you
Exactly.
need the paper. Otherwise you're not gonna get the interview.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it is for those people, I think, that you touched on that. If you're a job seeker, if you're currently thinking about it's time to get a new job, if you've been at your job 10 plus years, you probably fall in that category that
Yeah.
you're like, well, yeah, I did a great job, but I don't want to boast about it. It was really a team effort. I just oversaw the team. They did all the work. That's not going to get you like having a resume that's flat is that's not going to get you the job. And if you go into the interview that way and you're not able to articulate the greatness that you did, the numbers, if you're not able to articulate the job that you did and how well you did it and what you bring to the table, you're not going to get that second interview or that callback, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So it's important to quantify what you do and understand how to explain it, which again, when you're working with somebody to do that, you don't have to just kind of guess.
Wait, that way.
Yeah, right that way, yeah. You don't have to guess it. Does that make sense? Does it not make sense?
Right.
Because that's what having that partnership is going to help you determine what to highlight.
And help you feel comfortable about it.
Yeah,
Like not
yeah,
just determine it like, okay, here's your top 5 skills. Here are 5 great accomplishments that you've done. Now, how do we package that up and how can you articulate that so you feel good about it? You feel confident. I think
yeah,
that's one of the things that I get feedback from my clients is that, and it's not something I even realized was going on, is that I help increase their confidence. Would you say that you get that with your clients as well?
Yeah, because they're like, "Oh, I never thought about it that way. I never really, looked at it in that perspective." And, again, I'm able to help them do that because that's what I do.
I know,
My
and you
job.
do it very well.
So it's, it's easier for me to do, but yeah, I really love that part about it is people understanding like, "Oh, I'm gonna move forward and talk about this, and that's gonna be
Yes.
good."
Helping them be able to talk about themselves and their accomplishments and feeling good about it, right? I love that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so are we ready to move on to topic number 3, Laura?
Sure.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about one of my favorite is transferable skills. So a lot of times I'm working with um, job seekers who are like, I want to pivot. I no longer want to be in accounting. I want to be an event caterer or an event manager, right? So
Yeah.
that's called a pivot in our industry. Now,
Right.
in every job that you have, there are transferable skills, and it's super important to understand what those are and how to define them. So I'm going to let Laura take it away and talk about transferable skills.
Okay. So this kind of comes into play. Take it back to where we mentioned the keywords that you're using to meet that ATS requirement. So now that you've listed those keywords, you need to be able to describe you accomplishing that in the bullets below. And that's how it becomes a transferable skill. You don't just say, "Oh, I have this." You have to show how that works. So, for example, if we are looking at an accountant transferring into event management, let's roll with that one. So, I would venture to say that somebody who's an accountant, who's looking to go into event management, has had some experience in that in their current role. So maybe that accountant is in charge of putting together the budget for the events that are going out there, right? So they have passed that along to someone. So that would mean they would know how to budget that. Um, Looking at how to get the best costs into their documentation is going to be really important. So documentation is important for accountants. It's also important for management. You're working on invoices. You can probably also work and do proposals because somewhere in there is a contract that maybe you've gone over with a vendor. So there's many different things to bring in, and that's just the hard skills. You could also talk about your transferable soft skills, communication, your ability to lead a team, any type of project management you've been doing. So think about it in this way. Did you lead the audit? Okay, that's a project. So now we need to break that down and figure out what were the steps you did to get everything in that project or the audit to go right. So that's just one way of doing it. Another example that I had here is it's very natural for teachers, professors to want to go into leadership and development for corporations or into HR. And one of the things that a lot of my clients come back to me with is, instructional design. They'll say, "I have instructional design," but they don't understand how to explain that. Well, look at the lesson plans that you put together. Look at how you present. What kind of technology are you using in with that? So, um, a lot of times when you're looking to make a pivot to a different industry, you already have those skills there. So we just have to explain how you did that so that you can have that on paper and then again translate that into your interview when you're moving forward in the process.
I love that. So we have some questions.
Okay.
So someone asked, is there a list of keywords somewhere? So I'm asking if they mean like keywords for a certain job. Um, I'm not sure exactly what the specific question was or what it was directed to. Would that be, I don't know if we can even answer this without knowing, but Miss N.
Well,
Phillips is asking.
it's a couple of things for you to think about. So, keywords are basically going to be your soft skills and your hard skills, right? It's hard skills, things you're doing process wise, hardware wise, software wise, soft skills, who you are, as a leader, who you are as a team. How do you communicate regularly? Do you train people? Things like that. So, two ways to help identify those. One, start pulling up job descriptions and look for those words that keep popping up. And two, what is the jargon that you throw around your office? What are you talking about when you're in the office? What are those words? So, for example, if you're making proposals, do you understand what I say when I say RFPs? That is the proper way to do that, right? Request for proposal or RFB, request for bid. So, it's really just taking a minute to think about it. Don't overthink about what qualifications you should be meeting. Think about what you do. What are the things that you highlight? Those are the keywords that you want to highlight for yourself. Find the job descriptions that also have those keywords in them, and now everything's matching up.
I love that. That's great. Thank you. And I put that in the comments. So I hope that that answers your question. I always like look exactly what's going on in your office? What are you doing right now? Like you said, the RFPs. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
Right. Request for proposal or a BEO. Right.
Yeah, exactly. You need to figure out what that is, and that's probably some of your keywords.
Yeah. That and the job descriptions. You're going to
Yeah.
see the keywords. What are they looking for? Right.
Yeah.
So, but speaking of keywords, let's talk about this real quick and then we'll start wrapping up. One of the things that I see is that people list every computer skill they have. And this is for non-IT people, because IT people, that's super important, right?
Yes.
But for everyone else, Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, all the different programs, is that necessary to list those? Or is there a shorter way to do that?
That's a good question. Honestly, with the ones that you said, yeah, I always list those out. I know you could put Microsoft Office Suite, but I always put both. You have your Microsoft Office Suite, and then you need to put Excel, Access, Word, PowerPoint.
Is that because maybe those are in the job description? Like if they're asking for that, you definitely want to have that on there?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And you really need to look all the way through the job description. So even down to the fine print, because there's a lot of times where you find a preferred qualification. And just
Ah,
look at the top half. If you're not meeting those preferred qualifications, like sometimes I get clients who are just like, that's assumed, where they're like, well, of course I use Excel. Well, if you're not putting it there,
that's a good
then
point.
it's not gonna, and it's all about a formatting thing too. So let's say if you don't have room to like list out everything,
Right.
then include it in one of your bullets. Now you're getting the keyword there. It's
Okay.
not just about throwing everything in one spot. Um, and then what I would say is you need to have at least one CRM system or ERP system in there.
Yes.
So if that's, Salesforce, Oracle, whichever, at least one is gonna, and then I always put CRM just in there so that if you have a different CRM, you're gonna get hit for CRM, which is good. But then they'll see, oh, they use Oracle. Well, I'm sure they'll be fine if we look at
Right.
their data or we look at Salesforce. Yeah, so it's to have that understanding. So it's kind of a balance, but again, it just if you're seeing it in every job description, you have to have that word.
Okay.
you know.
Well, I think we answered Miss N. Phillips' question. She said, thanks so much. I'm just going to ask her any other questions. Because we really do want to make this interactive and we want to answer your questions. Normally we charge for this. So this is a great deal right now, you guys. Take advantage of it. So that's really all the questions right now. I'm trying to make sure I check LinkedIn and Facebook. This is actually coming on YouTube. We're getting questions from YouTube.
Okay.
So that's a new platform that I'm getting questions on. I love it. Thank you for joining us. Is there one last tip that you want to leave our viewers with if they're looking for a new job? One fabulous tip that you're like, you've got to do this if you're not doing anything else.
Sure. So you talked about resume length. You said you get that asked a lot, right?
Yes.
That's supposed to be. So, okay, here's your bonus tip, which is okay. The resume length depends on your industry. It also depends on your level, your professional level. How many years have you been working? If you've been working 6 years, you're probably good to just stick with one. You should figure out how to get that all on one page. Absolutely. But for most people that are not most people, for most in management positions and above, you're going to be a two-pager. That's just what it is, and that's okay. The goal is that that second page, here's the rule of thumb for it, okay? Second page, if you can go more than a third, then
Okay.
you are worth that second page. If you can only get 1/3, then it looks like you don't understand what's important, you don't know how to scale it down, and you don't understand how to format and create a
Yeah.
succinct report.
Your resume isn't where you put everything you've ever done. We actually just had this conversation a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
It's not where you dump everything because you're like, well, they've got to know every single thing I've done because I want them, in case I'll fit over here in this section, or, maybe they'll get me for that job. So it's really about being focused and highlighting your biggest accomplishments, your best skills, because you want them. And Laura, you said this, and I love this. You want them to call you for an interview because they want to know more.
Yeah, exactly. If you put too much on your resume, you run the risk of them judging you off of the resume and not bringing you in for an interview, feeling that that document speaks for you. And instead, they bring someone else in to interview. And I mean, who do you think is going to get the call to move forward? They're
Right.
going to talk to the person they see in front of them. That's just natural.
I love that tip.
The last little quick thing I'll say is that even for IT, 2 pages, you can make it happen.
You mean don't
Usually.
list every project that they've ever worked on?
No. Definitely not, and, I have experience in this. 2
Okay.
pages.
We do have one more question. So Miss Ann Phillips says, I said, any other questions? She said, yes. What do you save your resume as? Do you put CV or resume in the title? First name, last name?
Okay, that's a good question. So a resume and a CV are different. So if you're doing a resume, then it's a resume. So I would have first name, last name, resume. The word resume. If you are applying if you have more than one resume, mean that they're geared to different industries, then put the industry or put the closest job title in there. A CV is for teaching professors, scientists, PhD
Academia.
level, academia. That is your David Copperfield. That should have every single thing you've done from when you entered school. That should have everything on there. It's a different format. Those are usually 4 pages. So
I've seen 5 and 6.
Yeah,
because everything they've ever published.
Yes, and that's where, especially if they've got a lot of publications or patents, it can get out there. Yeah. So CV is different. That is not a resume.
Thank you for answering that question. And again, Patty, or I'm sorry, Miss N. Phillips, I don't know why I said Patty. If you have any more questions, just go ahead and let us know, and we will go back, and on YouTube is where she's at, and we will answer those questions. So Laura, man, we shared so many great tips. We talked about the ATS system, how to get through that wall and knock it down so your resume goes from the big pile to the little pile. We talked about the quantifying. So using numbers and percentages, taking what you do, your average job, you think it's average, but there's a way to quantify that. And we all know recruiters and talent managers, they love those numbers. So make sure that you get some really great numbers on your resume. And also we talked about your transferable skills. And then the bonus tip, how long should your resume be? And Laura broke it down. The one pager, average, the one pager for under 6 years and under. The 2 pager is probably where most people fall in. And then academia, they're 5, 6, 7. They're a whole friggin' book.
Yeah, exactly. And a federal resume too, that kind of is more like a CV. So
yeah. Exactly. Well, thank you so much for joining us. You dropped so many great bite-sized tips for our viewers tonight. Laura, why don't you tell everyone how they can reach you if they have any more questions?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. This was fun. I try to be a wealth of knowledge for anybody that I'm working with. So you can book a free 20-minute consultation with me.
Yay.
If you go to my website, which is www.arc, the word resume, resume.com. And on my contact page, you'll have that there. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn under Laura Bayshore. And you can send me an email as well at info@arcresume.com.
Fabulous. I put your website in the links, but feel free to double check, make sure I didn't typo that, because we all know my dyslexia is great for typos. And number two, go ahead and put your LinkedIn profile and the email. So thank you again. Stay. There we are. Sorry, folks. So you guys, this was such a fun and informative show, and I really hope that you got a couple bite-sized tips that you can apply immediately. And if you want further help, Laura and I are both career coaches. We're both LinkedIn profile makeovers. She's your resume guru, not me, but I can do everything else for you. And we do partner up and collaborate on our clients' projects together. So feel free to reach out to either of us. And maybe you're not quite ready to hire a career coach, but you're thinking about it and you're like, I think I want to get a new job next year, but I want to do it myself. Well, you guys, you really can't do it yourself. But you know what I've done for you, because I want to serve more people. I truly want people to have a great job, because I know what it feels like to be stuck in a career where you hate Mondays. Sundays, you have anxiety, you can't sleep. You call in sick on Mondays sometimes because you just hate your job. You walk on eggshells. It just ruins your life. Look at my face right now. I have been there. I don't want anyone else to ever be there again. So I've created an e-course, and we launched this e-course. We have 25 spots for the introductory price of $297. And everything I do with my clients is in this course, where you get the templates, the PDFs, the video tutorials, and as a bonus for this launch, you get live office hours with me, so that we can actually work through your car statements, your interview, your exit statements, your red flag list, your LinkedIn profile. We can do all of that in the course together. So if you're interested in that, you just give me some info in the comments, just say, I want the course, and I'll send you the link to sign up, because we are being selective with people that are joining us for the intro launch, because we want to make sure that it's people that are actually committed to doing the work, because I'm going to hold you accountable every week in the live office hours. Laura, I have you back on. Thank you so much. Technology. Oops.
Oh, hello.
So thank you again, you guys. If you like this show, I'd love for you to leave some comments, give me a review. And more importantly, what do you guys want to see on the show? What topics do you want to see on this show in 2020? Is there a guest star that you want to see on the show? I'll ask them. Drop their name below. I got a 50-50 shot of them saying yes, right? That's my motto. That's how I look at it. And my next show, you guys, is going to be January 8th. We typically do the first and third Wednesday of the month, but because of New Year's, we're moving it to January 8th. And we have Hugo coming on the show, and his business is Time Flies. So it's about being productive and not just making long lists, but being more productive, more efficient is what I would like to say. So I hope that you'll join us then. We're kicking off the new year with product and efficiency people, so we can set ourselves up for success in 2020. So you guys, high five, stay fabulous and informed. Follow me on LinkedIn for Tuesday tips. We're dropping them every Tuesday. Thank you, Laura. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.